The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be a fun one. We've got an article about giants, which we always love, and then there's a whole lot more to this story than what is covered in the article, so we'll get into that. The article comes from onlineupdates.net, and the headline is Ancient Nevada Giants and the Enigmatic Lovelock Cave. It was published December 20th of 2020. There's a very common hypothesis that has been going around for years. Now that means our world was once populated by a group of giants that killed anything they reached. They were ruthless beings who stopped at nothing to get what they needed. They would destroy and maim even their own when they felt challenged. They would stoop as low and cannibalize each other just to build their own dominion over the fields. According to mythology, the Paiute, aka the tribe that arrived in the Nevada area a few thousand years earlier, referred to this group of giants as the Siteka, and according to them, a war was fought between the Indian tribes and the giants to eventually determine who would rule the lands. Despite the fact that they were failing, the Paiute tried to foil the giants by beating them into the Lovelock tunnel, which they barred the door to after the giants had reached it. The giants ended up dead and life moved on without any signs of it, or so we figured. Recently, a major find was made. The Lovelock Cave was eventually spotted, and there were traces inside of giant 15-inch footprints, and even large skulls that left scientists utterly perplexed. This is a perfect day for conspiracy theorists across the world, because this is one hypothesis that we can certainly claim is reality, not fiction. And that is the end of the article. Now, as I said, there's a ton of other information about the giants, the battles, and the Lovelock Cave. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about these giants. They were actual giants. They weren't just tall people. Okay, we're not talking about like 7-foot tall people here. We're talking like 12 to even up to 30 feet tall. Some of these giants were. And they were horrible, horrible creatures. They would raid the Indian villages, not just the Paiute, but all the other tribes in the area as well. And they would carry off their children and their women, and they would eat them. That's where the cannibalism comes in. They would eat the children, they would eat the women, they would eat the men, really. They would eat anybody that they could get their hands on. And they would attack all the time, and they were just not only a nuisance, but an ongoing threat and danger to the tribes. So the Paiute decided they weren't going to take this crap anymore, and they started fighting back. And they actually went to war with the giants. Now, it was kind of touch and go in the beginning. The giants would win sometimes, the Paiute would win sometimes. The Paiute were doing fairly well, but they weren't this overwhelming force that was just wiping the giants out, like the article makes it sound. What they did, though, is they went to the chiefs and the elders of all the other tribes in the area, and they convinced them all to join forces with the Paiute to go to war against this race of giants. And that kind of really turned the tide. They fought for years and years. This war lasted. Okay, this wasn't like a quick thing. This went on for a long, long time, trying to get rid of these giants because they were just constantly attacking them and carrying off their tribe members. So one day, as the tribes chased down the last remaining giants, the giants took refuge in a cave. This was the Lovelock Cave. Now, the Paiutes didn't quickly seal it up like the article says. According to the legends, what they did was they all came in front of the cave, and they demanded that the giants come out of the cave and fight them. But the giants refused. They were having none of it. They did not want any of the Paiute or any of the other tribes because they were getting their butt kicked pretty good, and they wouldn't come out. And the Paiutes weren't going to go in because if they would have went in there, they would have all had to kind of funnel in one or two at a time, and the giants would have just smashed the hell out of them as they entered the cave. So they weren't going in. The giants weren't coming out. So they were at a stalemate. So what the Paiutes decided to do was to shoot arrows at the giants. So what they did was they started a gigantic fire right at the mouth of the cave. And they waited with their bows to shoot them when they came out, because they thought that building the fire, what would happen was the smoke would go into the cave and it would drive the giants out because they just wouldn't be able to take it. So they were sitting there waiting with their bows, ready to shoot them. And the smoke did actually drive out a few of the giants. And the ones that came running out of the cave because of the smoke, they died in a hail of arrows. I mean, they just got lit up because all these Indians, they just shot the hell out of them with their bows. Now, not all the giants ran out of the cave. Some of them stayed in. Now, a lot of those ones that stayed in, they were either burned alive because the fire had actually spread into the cave, or they died of asphyxiation to smoke. Now, the Paiutes didn't actually seal the cave off. What happened was, over time, the entrance to the cave collapsed little by little. And it got to the point where people couldn't get in and out of it anymore because the holes were way too small. I mean, the bats could go in and out. Maybe like some small animals, like, rodents, stuff like that, might be able to get in and out. But it was pretty much impassable for a human being. Now, this was Lovelock Cave. It was also known as Bat Cave because there was a whole lot of bats that lived in it. Some people in the area called it Horseshoe Cave. It was also called Sunset Guano Cave. Now, obviously, after the bats there as well. And also it was called Indian Cave. So it had a whole lot of names. The cave is located about 20 miles south of modern-day Lovelock, Nevada. And the cave has been there for, I don't even know how long, a long, long time. It predates humans on this continent, if that tells you anything. It goes way back to prehistoric times. And it was actually, back in prehistoric times, there was an underwater lake that was there. So the cave was actually underwater in prehistoric times. So there was question whether or not this story was true for the longest time. And in 1886, a mining engineer named John T. Reed was told this legend by the local Indians. And they actually took him to the site to prove that the cave existed and it was true. Reed tried to get an archaeological dig going there, but he was unsuccessful. Eventually, in 1911, they started digging out that cave. They stripped a layer of the guano from the cave that was like 3 to 6 feet deep. Now, for those who don't know what guano is, that's bat poop. And it was like 3 to 6 feet deep. And they had to use like a pick and a shovel and everything to get all that out of there, because they saw it as something they could make a lot of money on. And they weren't really paying attention to whether or not there were artifacts in there or anything that was super important. In 1912, there was the first actual archaeological dig of Lovelock Cave. It was led by a guy named L.L. Loud from the University of California. There was a second dig there in 1924 after they had finished the excavations of the entrance and everything. And they published a report in 1929. Okay, now what Loud had found was pretty awesome. He found about 10,000 specimens, archaeological specimens. Okay, these were all kinds of different things. They were tools, they were bones, baskets, weapons, all that kind of stuff. Now, according to this report that was published, there was 60 average height mummies that were found in that cave. So these weren't giants, these were average height mummies. They found duck decoys that actually had real feathers still attached to them. These duck decoys were some of the oldest ever found. And they found a sandal which was over 15 inches long. So that's your first clue that there's something that's a little bit bigger in this cave as well. They found a donut-shaped stone that had 365 notches carved all around the outside of it, and had 52 corresponding notches inside of it. So what they believed that was an early calendar, because they had 365 notches for each day of the year, and then they had the 52 to mark the weeks of the year. Now, radiocarbon dating that was done on the site on follow-up visits found vegetable material dating all the way back to 2030 BC. And they found a human femur dating to 1450 BC. So once again, this was a cave that had been in use for a long, long time by humans. They found basketry dating to 1218 BC, also in the cave. So archaeologists concluded that humans had occupied Lovelock Cave starting all the way back around 1500 BC. So this was not a cave that was unknown, let's say, to people. It's a cave that had been in use for a long, long time. Now, there was a lot of debate back then as to whether these legends or these claims about the giants were true. During the initial excavations, there were reports of the mummified remains of two red-haired giants. One a female and the other one a male around 8 feet tall. No evidence remains of these giants today, that we know of at least. I don't know where they are. If they ever had them, somebody else took them, I don't know. But those reports did exist at the time. It was left out of the main report, but there were reports that they were found in the cave at that time. Now, they did a lot of different digs. They did a lot of different things there. This most recent one, they found gigantic human skulls that show that there were actually giants that lived in that cave, at least died in that cave. I don't know, they didn't actually live in the cave, but there were giants that died in that cave. Now, that does a couple different things. That proves the legend true, but it also proves that giants actually existed. I mean, you had the sandals, which were 15 inches, that back up the tail. There was an article that was published in the Nevada Review Minor in 1931. And it reported that the two very large skeletons were found in an old dry lake bed near Lovelock, Nevada. So here you have another report of giants in that immediate area where they found bodies. One was 8.5 feet tall and was later described as having been wrapped in a gum-covered fabric, similar to a mummy from Egypt. So it's the same kind of fabric that the Egyptians used when they mummified people. And the other giant that they found in that dried out lake bed was around 10 feet tall. They have a set of images that show a handprint from there that is more than double the size of a normal man's handprint. And this was imprinted on a stone boulder inside the cave. That evidence came out in, I believe it was 2018. Along the border of Peru and Bolivia, there have been skulls that were found near Lake Titicaca, and the claims there are that they were made from giants with reddish hair and elongated skulls. Now, the legends there tell of the Uros Indians making reed boats and living on the islands similar to what the Paiute did. And basically, the story there is kind of the same as with the Paiutes. They were having a lot of trouble with these giants coming into their villages, stealing their women, stealing their children, eating them, doing all kinds of horrible things. So they got tired of it, and they all banded together, and they kicked the giant's ass. Same story. The details are a little different, same basic principle. So the question here isn't really anymore whether the legends were true, because we have actual evidence that there were giants that died in those caves and in the immediate area. We have evidence of giants down there on the border of Peru and Bolivia. For that legend, same thing. They found the skeletons. There are reports about it. So we know that these things existed. So no longer is it a matter of, it's just make-believe. And I think this is amazing because we've done several shows on giants already. And I did one that was a biblical show, the What Are Demons and Where Do They Come From, where I went through the origin story of giants, where they came from and how they came up to be. And this is kind of a tale that goes along with that, but this is a tale of why there aren't many giants left today. Now, you still have reports of giants today. We had the story that came out of Afghanistan of the U.S. military killing a gigantic red-haired giant that came out of a cave and impaled one of our soldiers with a spear and got lit up by a bunch of machine gun fire. And they took him away in a big net with a helicopter and bailed. There were multiple interviews done with the soldiers that were there, that participated in that. And now none of them can be found to be interviewed or heard from again. I don't know where the hell they went. They just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. But those interviews were conducted. That film is out there. So we still have reports today of giants, but they're nowhere near as prevalent. And people often ask why. Why are they not around still? Well, back when the flood happened with Noah, a lot of them died. There were some that survived, and there were some that survived here in America. There's tale of when people first came here, there were these giant burial mounds all throughout America where supposedly the bones of giants were kept. There's a lot of newspaper articles from the 1800s about that. You can find them if you go look. There's tons of them. And now we have the stories of different Indian tribes where they actually fought and battled these creatures. Now, a lot of people took these legends as simply that, legends. In the article, they call it mythologies. But I would submit to you that if you have physical evidence that proves that these legends are true, that there were giants and they did die in those caves and in that area, then I wouldn't call that mythology anymore. I would say that's history. It's a tale of what actually happened. I mean, these people are telling you not only that these things existed, but that they fought wars with them and exactly what happened. And the physical evidence on the site backs it up. So I would say what we're dealing with is not mythology or legend. What we're dealing with is history. So that's the background on it. That's the extra information that was not included in this article. I've done a lot of research on this myself because I was planning on doing a show on the giants at Lovelock Cave and all those old Indian legends a long time ago, and it just kind of got passed over because other things came up that we did shows on, and it kind of got put on the back burner and forgotten about. And then old boy showed me this article, and I was like, oh man, I got tons of information on these giants and the legends of what happened there that I could share with the audience. So this gave me a perfect opportunity to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it back over to old boy. I'm going to get his opinion on the legends and what I've said and everything tonight, and basically anything else that he wants to talk about. So old boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. This is a really good story. I'm glad he did this because we do a lot of things about the Nephilim and the giants. Lovelock Cave, it's another, I saw it. I sent it to him. He's told me about it before. We just never did it. So I'm glad we got to do this this show. My opinion is it's probably true. Giants do exist. They've proven it. The way they did it, I wouldn't doubt it. It isn't the only time I ever heard they snuffed some. They used to do it to other creatures like mammoths and stuff back in the day, and they would put a fire and get them out, choke them out, what they call them. So I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't doubt it. That part of it, I totally agree with. Now, I saw the story and I sent it to James because we were talking about it a couple months ago, and then we decided to do it because we saw another story about the two-headed giant they have, and I saw that story. Maybe we could do that story down the line. That would be a kind of cool one about the two-headed giant. I think I forget Barnum and Bailey. I don't know if it was them. It was one of somebody like that had the skeleton of the two-headed giant. But you know how that went. Some of that stuff was fake. We all know that. Now, do I believe they found in the riverbed he was saying, 8.5 and a 10-foot giant? That would make sense. Because even in the Bible, Goliath was 10 feet, 10 inches tall. His dad was even bigger. I think 13 or 14 feet. The whole race were around that 10 to 15 feet range. Some saying to 30. And actually, if you read some parts of it, it says up to 500 feet, some of these things. But probably around 10 to 15 is what I would say, guys. That's what my assessment is. And some were smaller than others, and some were bigger than others. And some of these giants, you guys got to realize, were not, they said they killed people and stuff. I bet you there's two sides of it. We killed them too and didn't care. And, humans are not the most nice people. So I believe there's two sides to that. We probably killed them too. So that's probably why they did nasty stuff to us. And, if you ever read almost in every story in every Bible and everything, the angels or some kind of being falls in love with women of men. Even Zeus did in Greek mythology, and most of every god you think of, or angel, has done something with the men or women of men, but mostly the women. So that's no surprise there. They made the Nephilim from the women of men. It was supposed with the angel that came out of their house and came down. You guys know the story of the Nephilim. It could have been the ancient races of people. They're everywhere you hit. That's what we think. I don't think Sasquatch is. I think that's a different, whole different creature. But I think there was giants. I think there still is. Like he was talking about the red giant, red beard giant, and I think it was in the Middle East. They killed that soldier, and then they killed him. He was like 14, 15 feet tall. There's a picture of during the riots. They had like a 13, 12-foot giant. You could see it was huge. Looks like two men running around. And we talked about that before because we did a Nephilim show a long time ago, a couple years ago. Because we're coming on, I think, at the end of the year, 5 years almost. We've been doing the show a little under 5 years. So we've done a lot of shows, and especially about giants. I always like giants. I'm going to tell you something. That's my favorite. One of my favorite stories is giants. I've always liked things that are bigger. I don't know what it is. Just bigger creatures. I just like giant creatures. The bigger, the better. It's just something I have always liked. I've always been attracted to giants. I thought they were real cool. I've always liked monsters and stuff like that, like King Kong and Godzilla just came out. I love that movie. Giant ape and a giant radioactive lizard. come on, man, you can't get any better than that. Thing was awesome, guys. Go check it out if you can. Great movie. But again, giants and anything with this subject, I love. I've always liked giant with Jack and the Beanstalk and the Giants. Always the Disney version of it too. The giant running around chasing, I think Mickey at the time. Always Jason and the Argonauts. The giants in there. The giant Hydra. The giant bronze statue. Sinbad. The giant. There's a couple of things in there. The giant dragon and then the giant Cyclops. That was cool. And all the other Sinbad movies always has some kind of giant in it, King Kong and all. But those are different. But I've always liked the story of giants because I think they existed. I know they did. They still exist. There's just not many of them left. I think they work with us too in the military. I think they're also ones that don't like us either. I think there's all kinds of stuff. If you think about the old world, vampires and giants and werewolves and stuff like that, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I just think that they stay away from us. Unfortunately, sometimes we run across these things, and that's what happened. And they were just too much of a nuisance back then, and that Indian tribe killed them. And I don't think they got rid of all of them. They killed most of them, and some of them probably got away. Just like they say in some, just like the Nephilim didn't all die. That one of them a couple of them snuck on Noah's boat. I don't know if I believe that or not, but there's some argument about that, but I don't think they all died. I believe that's where they all come from. And these things are probably not your buddies. Like there's probably a few of them, but there's some of them that probably just don't like us. It's a hatred that's been around for thousands of years because we killed them and they've killed us and done nasty things to us. Because you got to think these giants probably picked on us because we were smaller and they could get away with stuff, and we just got tired of it and killed them. And we did, but with what we do is we constantly do it. Once we get more powerful than somebody, we do the same thing, and we probably killed most of these giants off. And that's what happened. We killed all the mammoths off. What else did we kill? Like the woolly rhino. We killed a lot of things off. A lot of buffaloes. A lot of species are gone because of us. And that's probably what happened. We killed most of them. And some of them who are alive, they're probably either mixed in with the community or hiding or working with us. You never know what goes on. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that's 100% accurate, but I think these giants still exist. They're not like us, so it's different. It's a different kind of, I don't know what you would call them, like a mutation, maybe, no, or maybe they were just born like that. But I think they're half human, half, I don't know what else half you would be. A lot of people would say if they were Nephilim, they're half demon, half angel, I think, or abomination. They call them abominations. So they were probably half something. And then some of them said they were mixing with animals and stuff like that. So that's why you got some of these weird looking creatures like the Minotaur and all these other things running around. I'm not trying to get onto that subject. So I really believe the story. I love like I said, this was a story I picked and I had James do it. James pretty much gets into detail. I just comment on it, guys, unless it's something I really know about, but I knew he was going to do it. There's nothing really I have to go over, just some of the, backtrack a little bit on review stuff. But I believe they existed. I believe they still existed. I believe they found bodies. I know the Smithsonian Institute, I can't say the word that good, found giants and they've hid it from us, or they've destroyed the skeletons, and they were even bigger than that. 50 to 100 feet taller. They just don't want us to know the truth that these things walked around. And because I think that, like, again, with everything, with ghosts, vampires, aliens, we couldn't handle the truth. I mean, it's becoming the truth that aliens exist, guys. They're already pretty much admitting it. They're not lying really much about it anymore. And I think people just ignore it because they don't want it to be real, because I think it scares people that other things in this world we don't know of it could exist. And I think people just want to call it off and say they don't, because they deep down inside they hope it doesn't exist, because if it did, they don't know what it will change everything. It will change the way we think, the way we acknowledge how life is. It's going to change everything. And that's what I believe. I think some people are very much afraid of what they're going to find out when the truth comes out. It's not going to be what they've been taught and what they've read out of books, and it's been altered and changed. So I think that's what it is. I think a lot of things are, that's just with everything. I think everything gets hidden from us. They don't think we can handle the truth. And quite frankly, they're pretty much true. 90% of people wouldn't be able to deal with a lot of this stuff. There's a certain few that can, like me and James, but pretty much if you said 90% of the people would say we're crazy. So, and there's that 10, 15% it says that we're not. And that's just the chosen few, that who believes it or special, or we have different abilities and we see things, feel things, deal with things, dream of things. Just go to different worlds sometimes. If you want to, I don't know how you guys are going to take that, but that's why we're different. And this show works so well. So I don't really have too much to say other than that. I said a couple things. I think the giants do exist. I think they were killed majority ways that way. They probably were slain other ways. There was other ways they trapped them. And, I think we were smarter than them in some ways. They were just a lot more brutes. Not saying they're dumb, because they were intelligent too. I think they're even more intelligent than they were now. I just think that they were overconfident. Everybody, if you're bigger, or say you're 10 feet, 12 feet tall, and you see a regular average sized man then was about 5.5 feet tall, 180 pounds, 160 pounds, and you're 900 pounds, and you're about 12 feet tall, you're not going to be too much scared of me. It's going to take 2 or 3 of them to take you down. So, like with everything, and I don't believe all of them were bad, there was probably some good giants, and there was probably some bad giants. Majority bad, because they probably underestimated us, like everybody does. But like humans always, you never underestimate us, because we will prove you wrong. And we'll do it. It doesn't matter how many times we fell or people die, somebody's going to do it. So that's probably what happened. So there you go, James. I'm going to send it over to your brother. That's all I got to say about that.
There is a weird kind of disconnect with things like this in the average mind. If you say giants are real, they exist, people look at you and think, okay, that guy is in La La Land somewhere. He's crazy. But with anything else in life, if you say we can go to the moon, before we went to the moon, people would say, that's crazy. How the hell are you going to do that? It's impossible. And then they do it, and they're like, oh, wow, look, it's done. The evidence proves that they did it. Cool. But with these kind of things, that doesn't happen. We present you with evidence on this show. That's what we do all the time. And I have proven time and time again that a lot of these things are real, that they existed. And there's this weird disconnect in a lot of people's heads where they still think it's crazy. Even though the evidence is there, they found the skulls in the cave. They know that the giants existed. I read you the article. They said it is not fake, it is real. And still, you will have people that say it's fake, it's craziness, it didn't happen. Another cool part of this is yet another example of science and history proving what the Bible said thousands of years ago. Now, on that show, What Are Demons and Where Do They Come From, that we did, I went through the entire biblical story of giants, their origin, all of it. The Bible talks about giants quite a bit. The book of Enoch talks about giants quite a bit. Here you have the legends of multiple different Indian tribes that talk about giants. And you have science saying, we found the skulls. We found giant handprint. We found a giant footprint. They were here. It's real. All of that is backing up what the Bible told you, proving it true. Science has proven, or at least they have put forth a theory based on evidence, that they believe that the human soul is a real thing. It exists. And that after you die, it isn't the end. Your soul goes on. The Bible told you this. So just recently, scientists came to this conclusion. The Bible talked about it over 2,000 years ago. That the human being has a soul and what happens to the soul when you die. Every scientist and historian is in agreement that there was a worldwide flood. The Bible talked about the worldwide flood as well. I think it's funny that a lot of times when people want to take shots at the Bible, they will say, oh yeah, the whole world was flooded. And they make fun of it. Every scientist, every historian backs that up. There was a worldwide flood. And if you look at the genetic studies that have been done, they have traced the lineage of mankind not to hundreds of thousands of years ago, like the scientists originally claimed. They traced it back to around that time of the flood and said that we all came from a single family line that dates back to that time period when the flood happened. When the Bible tells you that the earth was flooded, that human beings were wiped out other than Noah and his family, and that they repopulated the earth from there. Science backed that up. But people will still make fun of it. Now, why is that? Is it because they don't know? They have no idea that the DNA studies were done and that's what they proved? That's very possible. Because the news doesn't talk about stuff like that. You have to actually go read the damn reports. I covered it on the channel. There's a video, a paranormal news video, I believe it is, out there. Maybe we did an episode of Staring on it. They all kind of run together. I've been doing this a long time. But I covered it, and I talked all about it. But that proves the Bible right again. There is page 25. The infamous page 25. I did a video not too long ago talking about how you do out-of-body travel, astral projection, all that kind of stuff, and the CIA documents on that. In that set of documents, page 25 is missing. And people have been looking for page 25 forever. Well, they found it. I have it. And I'm going to do a video at some point on the channel about it. There's an article that I read that presented page 25. It showed up. And in that page 25, what do you think they talk about? They talk about God. They talk about one absolute force in this universe that runs everything. That created everything and runs everything. They call it the absolute. This is knowledge that in some ways have been hidden, but the Bible tells you about all this stuff. The Bible tells you God created the heavens and the earth. He tells you that God spoke everything into existence. That there is one force that controls everything, and it's God. And then you find these documents from our government that are saying the same thing, but it's suppressed, it's classified, you're not allowed to know it. Now, if they're saying that in their documents and they're discussing that, that means that they know that to be true. So what you have to ask yourself is why? is it hidden? Why is it mocked? Why do people constantly make fun of and say that Christians are crazy for believing what we believe, when time and time again we've been proven correct? The Bible has been proven correct. We know Jesus Christ was alive on earth. We know he died on that cross. Roman records confirm it. We also know that 3 days later, he rose from the dead. Once again, the records confirm it. He was not in the tomb 3 days later. But people are going to mock. People are going to make fun of things that they just don't understand. They don't have any knowledge. But they just want to talk a lot about nothing. And that's one of the hardest things to deal with in society today, really, is, and this isn't just about religion, this isn't just about giants, this is about everything, in the paranormal and outside of the paranormal. You have too many people that talk too damn much, and they have absolutely no knowledge on anything. But they just love to hear themselves talk. And they're never right. Time and time again, it's been proven correct. Time and time again, there have been reports, there have been skeletons found, there is evidence that giants existed. Time and time again. If you look back in the 1800s, there are countless newspaper articles about giant skeletons being found. There are countless newspaper articles about giant burial mounds, and inside those burial mounds were gigantic skeletons. You have legend after legend after legend from tribe after tribe about giants that would come into their camps, steal their children and women, and eat them. You have legends of the wars that were fought with these giants. If you go back to the Bible once again, old boy mentioned Goliath, the 12-foot tall giant that David slew with a slingshot. David's entire storyline in the Bible has to do with fighting giants. He started out killing Goliath with a slingshot. When he became king, he fought wars against races of giants. They talked about giants throughout the story of David. Those were the people he was fighting, trying to wipe them off the earth because they were horrible, horrible, evil people that would eat people and would attack people for no reason. The Bible talks all about it. And once again, we have in science and history, it's agreeing, it's proving the Bible right once again. Absolutely fascinating. I love the story of giants because it's one of those stories that there is so much evidence that it's borderline overwhelming if you actually go look for it. But the problem is, one, most people don't want to do the work and actually look for it themselves. And two, with the popularity of giants, as it gets more popular, then you have the people that do the fake stuff, where they will put out a little article with pictures and say, this skeleton was found at this dig site, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, wow. And everybody shares it around. But then once you actually look into it, you find that those are Photoshop pictures, that there are pictures online of that exact picture without the giant skeleton in it, where they're finding something else. Things like that have started to happen. So what that does is it makes people think that it isn't real, because you have some idiot faking it over here, and that sheds doubt on everything else. Even though there are articles from the 1800s that talk about it, giant skeletons. Why would those be faked? What purpose could that possibly serve? There's just so much evidence. You have the exact same thing. Old boy mentioned aliens as well. You have the exact same things with aliens. There is so much evidence that it is beyond overwhelming. That not only do they exist, but they have been here. They have taken some of our people to experiment on. The government knew about it and allowed it. And we have recovered bodies from crash sites. None of that is speculation. All of that is stone cold truth, hard fact, taken directly from the CIA files on UFOs, which I have the entire collection and I've covered some of on the channel and we'll cover some in the future. All of that stuff is admitted to in the CIA documents. It is fact. It is real. But yet for the longest time, our government told us aliens didn't exist. For the longest time, if you would say UFOs were real, people would think you were crazy. And they would make fun of you. I think the lesson from tonight's show, and really the lesson that I try to teach on just about every show I do, is never discount anything without looking into it. No matter how crazy, no matter how ludicrous it sounds, give it an honest look before you say, that's BS. Because you'd be surprised at the amount of things that you would just throw away and say is garbage. But once you actually look into it, the evidence is there that proves that it's real. You find this with almost every bit of the paranormal. You get it with cryptids like Bigfoot, Nessie, stuff like that. You get it with ghosts and hauntings. You get it with all kinds of creatures that people would call mythical creatures. You get it with demonic things in the spiritual realm. There's so much that most people think is nonsense that is actually real. The problem is with the popularity of the paranormal rising, where there's all these paranormal TV shows and everybody's on a paranormal team now. With all of that going on, you have a lot of people that have absolutely no idea what the hell they're talking about. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's just the bottom line. That's the truth. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. The problem is they don't stop talking. They keep telling people things and it's not right and it's not real. This article tonight is a prime example of that. They took a legend that was proven to be true and they misrepresented it in their article. Now, why did they do that? Were they trying to further some agenda that lying about the legend would serve? I don't think so. I think they did it because they were sloppy and lazy and they didn't do their damn research. I think that's what it was. They didn't report it correctly because they didn't know the legends, because they never looked at it. They didn't look it up. They didn't talk to anybody. They didn't research anything. They did a very surface level skim of the information, just enough to write an article of. And you have that all the time, where you'll read an article and it'll be based on a nugget of truth, but they'll get several things wrong in the article. And somebody like me who studies a lot of this stuff for a long, long time, I'll look at it and say, damn it, that's not right. This part of it's right, and I want to talk about it on the show because this part of it's right. But the problem is, if I cover this article on the show, this, and this are wrong in this article. So it's going to make me look like I'm giving false information, even though I know these things are wrong, but I want to share this one part that's right. So it makes it difficult. But if you don't have a background in it, and you don't study any of this stuff, and you don't know which parts are right and which parts are wrong, then you come on and you present the entire thing as if it's true, and then you're spreading false information. So it's one of those things where everybody wants to be viewed as an expert, but most people actually aren't, if that makes sense. And I'm not an expert in everything. I can tell you what I've studied. I can tell you what I know to be true and what I've looked into, and I've looked into a whole lot of different things. I'm one of those people that I'm driven by curiosity. I hear something and it interests me and I want to know everything there is to know about it. So I will spend the time and study and research every little thing I can find on a subject because it interests me. And then once I learn everything there is to learn about it, and I can't find nothing else, then I move on to something else. And I've done that my entire life. I've been like that my entire life. So you're dealing with like 45, 46 years of studying and researching not only paranormal, but history and science and just all these really cool tales that I've brought you on Staring into the Abyss. I've told you about different moments in history that not a lot of people know about that were really cool. I've told you about people that you probably never heard about. And I've done very extensive shows on a lot of different creatures and stuff like that with knowledge that I've gained throughout my entire life of studying these things. And the problem is when you take a look at a subject matter and you haven't spent the time to look into it, a lot of times you will put forth information that is not correct. That's my basic point. But that's about all the time we have for this week. I hope that you enjoyed the show, and I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy for his final sum up and his shout outs.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I liked it. Hopefully we can do more, and we will. Thank you for following us every weekend, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific time on Sunday night, technically Monday morning if you're in the East Coast, and all over the country and over the world. You guys want to listen to all our shows, go on James Hershey's YouTube page and follow us and listen to all the shows now and before for the last 4.5 years. You guys want any merchandise? We have shirts, COVID masks, all kinds of cool stuff. Go ahead and check it out. He'll tell you where to go. Also have a book called God's Will. Check it out, guys. It just came out the last couple weeks. You can get it everywhere. Barnes & Noble. I bought a couple copies at Amazon. You can get it anywhere. You can get the paperback, and I think it's the ebook or the notebook, whatever they call it, ebook. I think you can get it's like the digital copy. So check it out, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I love you guys. So I hope you guys have a good week. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster hunters, and demon lovers. I love you, and blessed be, and have a great night. Bye.
Thank y'all for listening tonight. Once again, I hope that you enjoyed the show. And I hope that you enjoyed this legend, which was really, really cool, of the legend of the wars that were fought against these giants. The cool thing about this is these legends are not just from the Paiute here in America, in Nevada, in that area. These legends are the same, whether you're talking the Paiute, whether you're talking down in South America, in the Amazon area down there. There's legends all over the world of giants and them behaving in this exact way, and the wars that human beings fought against the giants to try to wipe them off the face of the earth because they were really, really dangerous. And like I said, the whole story of King David talks about how he was fighting these giants, trying to kill them off. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that stuff. That's some stuff for you to look into yourself outside of listening to this show. If you want to read any of those, they're very, very interesting. Now for the shameless plugs. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. That's where all the episodes of Staring end up. That's where all the episodes of Tales are. You have all of the episodes of Paranormal News, which is another thing that I do on there where I take articles and go through it and give you more information and all that. Everything is there. So I hope that you guys check that out. It's 100% free. Go there, subscribe, and enjoy it. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. There's shirts, hoodies, posters, blankets, towels, mugs, just all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of different designs. The quality is really good and the price is low. So go ahead and check that out if you want merch. That's where you can find it. As always, thank you guys for all the support and the love that you give us. And we will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.